The monopoly people defend. A company controls roughly 74% of PC game distribution, pulls about $17 billion a year, and takes 30% from most sales. Normally, that story ends with customers cheering its downfall. Here, the opposite happens. Players attack its rivals, mock its lawsuits, and rush to protect the platform accused of squeezing them. Steam has more than 130 million monthly active users, 69 million daily users, and over 40 million people online at the same time. Yet it faces antitrust claims, price control accusations, and one consumer case demanding about $900 million. The strangest weapon against Steam is not a failed product. It is the love of its own customers. So if Steam is the villain, why do millions act like it is their last shield? The answer gets uncomfortable. Steam is not just a store. It is a library, launcher, marketplace, community hub, refund desk, update machine, and memory vault for entire gaming lives. It is owned by Valve, a private company built around games first and retail second. That matters, because most rivals entered this war from a very different angle. The legal pressure centers on one brutal number, 30%. Valve commonly keeps 30% of sales made through Steam. Apple, Google Play, and GOG have used similar rates, while Epic Games Store and Microsoft Store take 12%. That difference looks small until billions move through the system. Then, 18 percentage points becomes an empire. That is the target. The lawsuits ask whether Steam's power lets Valve hold prices in place across the market. If true, cheaper competitors may never get to compete on price. And if price competition dies, the fight is no longer about one store. It is about who controls the price of PC gaming. One major case was filed by Vicky Shopbolt on behalf of 14 million Steam consumers in the United Kingdom. The claim seeks £65 million, roughly $900 million, and attacks Valve's 30% charge as excessive. But the fee is only the front door. The deeper accusation is anti-steering. If a game is purchased through Steam and contains in-game purchases, those purchases must run through Steam's system. That keeps Valve's commission inside the transaction. Then comes the bigger allegation, price parity. A game may cost the same on Steam and on a rival store, even when the rival charges developers far less. Why would a developer not sell cheaper elsewhere? Wolfire Games says it found the answer. In its lawsuit, Wolfire claims a Steam account manager warned in 2018 that a game could be removed if it was sold at a lower price on another platform. Think about that. If one store takes 30% and another takes 12%, the second store could support lower prices. But if the price must stay equal everywhere, the cheaper store loses its main weapon. That is the trap. The accusation is that Valve uses dominance to protect the 30% rate while blocking rivals from undercutting Steam. Wolfire CEO, David Rosen, has argued that developers often cannot realistically avoid Steam. Because if your game is absent from Steam, it may disappear from the marketplace players actually use. Valve denies having a rule that controls third-party prices outside Steam. Gabe Newell has said, Valve does not dictate what developers charge on other platforms. But court files created another problem. Microsoft was pulled into the storm by a proposed class action filed in May 2026. The complaint alleges Microsoft entered an unlawful agreement with Valve requiring price parity between Microsoft Store and Steam. It points to an internal Microsoft email where one employee asks whether Steam demands parity and another allegedly says yes. The message reportedly adds that the rule is not written plainly in Steamworks documentation because it is handled in person. That detail matters. If price control is informal, it becomes harder to prove and easier to deny. It also becomes more frightening for smaller developers who need access to Steam. Other accusations have surfaced too. Some reports claim Valve threatened major publishers, including Ubisoft, with delisting games such as Rainbow Six Siege if lower prices appeared elsewhere. Valve rejects these claims. The courts have not delivered a final answer across all these disputes, but the legal theory is explosive. If Steam is using market power to keep prices equal, then rivals cannot win by being cheaper. That would not just hurt companies. It could shape the price of games for everyone. And waiting on the sidelines is the loudest attacker of all. Tim Sweeney, CEO of Epic Games, creator of Unreal Engine, and the company behind Fortnite, has repeatedly criticized 30% platform fees. He also fought Apple over App Store payments, so Valve is not his only target. On paper, Epic looks like the pro-competition hero. It charges developers 12%, spends aggressively, and has tried to break Steam's grip for years. Then reality hits. Epic reportedly spent around $2 billion on promotion. After 6 years, Epic Games Store held about 3% of the market. Even free games did not crack the wall. Epic gave titles away to pull users into its store. Internal analysis reportedly showed only 16% to 18% of people claiming free games later bought anything there. That is an astonishing failure. Give people games for nothing, and many still return to Steam when money is involved. Epic also paid for exclusives. Metro Exodus was listed on Steam before being pulled shortly before launch after Epic paid the publisher. Borderlands 3 became an Epic exclusive through a deal reportedly worth $146 million. Customers hated it. Years later, when Borderlands 4 returned to Steam, the studio's leadership admitted earlier hopes for Epic's store had been too optimistic. This is where the pro-consumer message gets messy. Epic attacked Valve for limiting choice, then paid publishers to remove choice from customers. Steam's other rivals had the same problem from another angle. EA App, Ubisoft Connect, Amazon Prime Gaming, Battle.net, Discord, Humble, GOG, Green Man Gaming, and Microsoft all tried to compete in some form. Many had money, some had giant franchises. Amazon had almost unlimited reach. Still, Steam survived. Ethan Evans, a former Amazon Prime Gaming executive, later said Amazon was at least 250 times bigger and still failed to disrupt Steam. His lesson was simple. Size and visibility were not enough. Players already had a solution. A new icon on the desktop was not a reason to leave. That cuts deep. Many publisher launchers feel slower, thinner, and more annoying than Steam. Worse, some force players to open them even after buying the game through Steam. Players remember that irritation. So when companies claim they want freedom from Steam, customers ask a colder question. Freedom for whom? For players or for publishers chasing a larger cut? Antitrust law protects competition, not automatically customer happiness. Sometimes those overlap. Sometimes they do not. If price parity disappears, publishers might not sell $70 games for $50. They may use Steam for visibility, wishlists, reviews, and discovery, then push buyers to their own store for a tiny discount. Maybe $5 off. Maybe the same price with skins. That is not a consumer revolution. That is rent shifting. Steam's unusual defense begins before Steam became a retail empire. In 1998, Valve released Half-Life, one of the most respected games ever made. Then came Portal, Portal 2, Team Fortress 2, Counter-Strike, Counter-Strike Source, Global Offensive, Counter-Strike 2, Left 4 Dead 2, and Dota 2. Many of those games grew from fan mods. Valve did not just copy community ideas. It hired modders and turned their work into industry pillars. That built a rare identity. Steam was created by people who understood the customers because they were customers. Steam launched in 2003 as a way to distribute Valve's own games. By 2005, it opened to third-party titles. Epic Games Store arrived 13 years later. Valve is private, and Gabe Newell owns the majority. Epic is also private, but major stakes sit with huge backers including Tencent, Disney, and Sony. That ownership difference affects perception. Steam feels like a gaming company that became a store. Many rivals feel like stores trying to become gaming companies. Perception became protection. In the late 2000s, PC gaming was under pressure as big publishers focused heavily on consoles. Steam's centralized distribution normalized digital sales and gave smaller games a route to players. Then came the discounts. Steam became famous for deep sales, with older games often dropping 50%, 70%, or even 90%. That created a habit no lawsuit can erase. Players opened Steam because they expected value. Valve also built trust through refunds. Buy a game, play less than 2 hours, request within 2 weeks, and you can get your money back. No interrogation. No drama. Customer support stories became part of the mythology. One Steam Deck owner described Valve replacing an LCD model months after purchase because it crashed and got stuck at 400 megahertz. Then came family sharing in 2013. Users could share libraries with others, allowing them to play without buying a second copy, as long as the owner was not playing at the same time. That is rare generosity in digital media. Valve also built SteamOS, a free Linux-based operating system. That is why Steam Deck and Steam Machine devices can function like PCs, rather than locked boxes.
The pro-consumer pattern continues with regional pricing.
In markets such as Brazil, Russia, and Southeast Asia, Steam recommends prices around 40% to 70% below the US dollar level. The goal is to reflect local income, not just currency conversion. Steam can even reduce discovery visibility for games that ignore those recommendations. That is power, yes, but players often see it as power used in their favor. Valve has also banned games whose business model depends on in-game advertising. If a title relies on ads elsewhere, those elements must be removed before release on Steam. It also requires developers to disclose AI use in development. Tim Sweeney criticized that policy, arguing it makes success harder for developers. Players heard something else. They heard Valve forcing transparency. Add esports prize pools for Counter-Strike and Dota 2, long-term game support, and Gabe Newell's public email history, where he has often replied directly to customers. That is not normal corporate behavior. Valve is still a profit machine. It is not a charity. It makes enormous revenue per employee and is known for high compensation. But it understands the equation most competitors miss. Trust compounds faster than promotion. Epic bought attention. Steam accumulated loyalty. None of this proves Valve is innocent. The lawsuits are real. The allegations around price parity, informal pressure, and platform power deserve serious scrutiny. If Valve fixed prices across stores, that could damage competition. But market share alone is not a monopoly. A monopoly usually means one seller, no real substitutes, and the ability to charge excessive prices because customers cannot leave. PC game stores can be launched. Many have been launched. The problem is that most did not become better than Steam. That is the uncomfortable truth. Steam may be powerful because it restricts rivals. Or it may be powerful because rivals keep offering worse experiences. And that distinction matters. Because if regulators weaken Steam, players may not get cheaper games. They may get more launchers, more exclusives, more fragmentation, and fewer protections. The real battle is not Steam versus competitors. It is trust versus leverage. Players are not defending a monopoly because they love being trapped. They are defending the one gatekeeper that, so far, has acted less dangerous than the people trying to replace it. Break the shield without fixing the market, and the players may lose the only empire they actually trusted.